Hey everyone. Wow, it's been probably close to a month since the last time that we did lines on a page. The setup today is a little bit wonky. I'm actually missing a key component, which is actually my phone stand. But just kind of making do with what I've got. But I did actually add in a really cool addition to all of this, which is actually this really nifty drafting table, which is helps me immensely. Uh, just trying to draw all stuff out, which, as we can see, hang on, technical difficulties here. All right, here we go. So here it is, and I'm looking a little. There's something wrong with the. Ooh, that actually looks kind of a little bit bad. But you know what? We will muster through it. And it looks like we've got some people in the chat already. David, Happy New Year, David. It's great to hear from you, man. James Parker in the house. Happy New Year to you too. Glad to have you guys on board. And going to do a quick little bit of housekeeping, per usual, for everything involving with lines on the page. If you happen to like the show, any other show that we do on Haven Comics, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to follow me on social media, I just go on Linktree and just type in tpriceartworks. You can find me on all major social media networks. So that's here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, also on Mastodon and Hive, and also Tumblr as well, if you want to find me through there. And also, to add into the chats, this piece is actually on. What's going on with the computer? Okay. This piece is available to purchase via auction. Starting bid is going to be on $50 if you want to purchase it, and it's only going to be for people who are seriously wanting to do it. However, how I'm doing the whole live bid during this is that if you are seriously interested in wanting to auction off in this, starting bid is at 50. It's only going to go up in dollar increments. We're not doing like $50 and 1 cent. We're not pulling that crap here. I have no time for that kind of patience. So it's only going to be done through dollar increments. So if you are seriously considering wanting to bid on this, feel free to do that in the comments during this live stream. If by chance that this has not been purchased during the live stream, I will be posting when it is going to be available for the remainder of whenever it's free. That's all I got. All right, so we're going to be doing Kang the Conqueror, and this is actually going to be my first time ever drawing Kang the Conqueror, which, funny enough, I'm also supposedly going to be doing a commission of Iron Lad as well. I was been back and forth talks with someone, so I'm technically going to be drawing the same person twice. So everyone else has, as far as like people who are older than I am, whose like first introduction into Kang the Conqueror was probably the early Avenger stuff. I didn't know about Kang the Conqueror until like the mid '90s, and it was actually in a Captain America series. I forgot who wrote it, but I know for a fact that it was Adam Kubert that was drawing it. And the whole thing is that apparently Red Skull has been living in a Matrix type world where he's like this, lowest the low person. Somehow he breaks out of it, and all this was caused by the Tesseract. He breaks out of it. He changes reality. It takes over the world, and supposedly Uatu, the Watcher, is asking for Captain America to butt in, which is very unlike Uatu. And you come to find out that it's actually Kang the Conqueror in disguise. And that was my first time ever, hearing about this character and anything regarding him. And so yeah, it was definitely my first time experiencing that character in a comic. Same thing with Red Skull. I knew who he was, but like I've never read a comic regarding Red Skull. So that was like my first iteration of the character, of just reading it. So yeah, it was really interesting to kind of have some sort of I guess first time exposure, if you will. Um, because he seemed like a really interesting character. His whole thing was kind of manipulating time and time travel and all that sort of stuff. At least as far as I knew, growing up as a kid. And looks like we got a few more people in the chat. Aha, Tots. Welcome, welcome. Happy New Year to you too and the rest of the family. Just to let you know, Tots, if you haven't heard, this piece is going to be available for auction through the live stream, and the starting bid is at $50. It will only increase in dollar increments. All right, so that was my first time experiencing the character Kang, and I had never seen him in anything else comic wise. So when Young Avengers came out, and spoiler alert for those of you who have never read Young Avengers, you find out the correlation between Iron Lad and Kang the Conqueror. But that was like my second, uh, you know, reading a character. So it was really, really interesting to, looks like we're off. Now we're back. We have some really weird things going on here with the wireless. But yeah, so I mean, that was basically my second experience of just dealing with the character. So, but yeah, for those of you who have never read Young Avengers, I highly recommend reading Young Avengers. Um, we Haven Comics actually did have the complete omnibus, but it has recently been sold. So if you want to purchase that, just message the store on the store's Facebook page, and we will try to hook you up with a copy. So I'm using a really light pencil, which is probably why you guys can't really see much of what's going on. You might. Um, Justin Butler, hey, what's up? Uh, Hopefully, if you've heard about this, we've got a live auction going on. This piece is going to be available. Starting bid is at $50, and it only increases in dollar increments. So right now, I'm just kind of doing a really quick uh, gesture drawing just to get the idea, because I wanted to do a different kind of pose for the character than when I had been normally drawing stuff in the past with the show. And I actually did a really quick thumbnail at the very bottom corner of this, which you guys probably can't see on screen. but I'm wanting to do kind of a different, imposing kind of thing. And I'm probably going to have to go back and forth, just dealing with the reference in terms of the costume, because there's like a couple of things that really haven't changed about, the iteration of the character since he was first shown. But just trying to get the idea down. That forum there. So if you can't obviously tell with the angle of this is actually at a 45-degree angle, so it's going to look a little wonky from the viewing side of things. But we are going to quickly just erase some of these lines real quick, and I'm going to use thicker lead, and we're going to start working out and hashing out details. So I'm going to be going back and forth with a reference here, there, and everywhere. James, I'm aware of some of the Young Avengers characters: Iron Lad, Patriot, Vision's daughter, Ant-Man's daughter, Wanda's kids, Hulkling. Can't remember who else. So you find out later, before the Vision's daughter, which I think she was actually in Champions. I don't remember her actually being in Young Avengers. But if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Please correct me. But apparently, Iron Lad's suits does download the Ultron database that was used for Vision. So it kind of becomes the new Vision, but a child, basically. So it's hard to explain. This happens at the end of issue 5, going into issue 6. But yeah, so it's the original team is Iron Lad, Patriot, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, Stature, which is Cassie Link, Ant-Man's daughter, and Wiccan, and who is one of Wanda's twins, Speed being the other one, and Hulkling. So yeah, as far as I can remember, that is basically the core team of the group. Happy New Year, do Lang anime style? What? Think you need to dial off the eggnog, man. Happy New Year, Alan. Hope everything was well over a year in. And did you fire off any mortar rounds or anything like that in the middle of the night? Because I have a feeling that that's something that you would do. But let's see. I'm going to pull up my quick reference real quick. So if it's a quick reference real quick, does that make it double quick? All right. So we're going to go back and start looking at, things regarding anatomy, style, yada, yada, yada. So he has a really interestingly pronounced face, as well as just a really interesting helmet kind of situation going on. So I'm gonna try to do the best I can to interpret it because the character has such an interesting, you know, it's not really like a blank expression, but he kind of has a blank expression most of the time. But it's got it, a bit of a sneer as well. It's really hard for me to describe exactly what's going on with this character. So I'm gonna have to change a few things here and there. Of course, it also really doesn't help to the fact that I've got the webcam like literally not even like 2 inches away from my left eye, so I'm kind of have like this black blur that's just like right here next to my face. Oh, I'm gonna try and figure this out. It looks a little bit goofy. Finish this up just a bit. Do Kang anime style. Yep. Mm-mm. Nope. Sorry, Alan. You were in bed at by 11. Man, I didn't get to fall asleep until like close to 3. But yeah, All right, there we go. All right. So I'm going to have like a interesting block texture thing going on. To give him a bit of age, kind of not exactly like putting like bags under the guy's eye, um, but just I guess emphasize the fact that he is uh, timeless to a degree, and he's been traveling through time and doing all of the shenanigans that he's known to do. And I think he's got a bit of a weird thing on the top of his head. Um, I don't think there's really anything else underneath that. So in order to, so the weird thing is he has that really weird bullet shell type helmet thing that's going on, which you see the similar thing with Darkseid, uh, the main antagonists with Justice League stuff. Um, so he has almost kind of like the same really weird bucket head helmets, bullet shell helmets uh, type thing. And so the weird part is just the separation of showing that there is a neck. Um, so it's going to be a really small section right here. Then we're going to create a bit of a lip. Goes right there. And the next couple of parts should fall pretty easily. And I'm going to check and double check. All right. So it's got this really weird armored poncho thing, which I'm not sure if that was I'm not even sure who it is that created Kang in the first place. And I feel like it's Kirby, Jack Kirby who created him. 3 a.m. That's crazy. So we have plans on doing a game night. Me and several other friends for 4th of July, and I had no idea that they were going to be shooting off fireworks literally at midnight. And of course, my car was blocked in, and I originally had planned of just like staying until about midnight and then make my way back home. So shooting off fireworks. Did a couple of rounds of Marvel versus Capcom and a card game called Joking Hazard, which is done by the people that created Cyanide and Happiness. Definitely not a kids game. So got second place in that. Need a manga episode where you draw people from Fairy Tale or Eden Zero. I don't even like those two, man. You know this about me, man. If I'm drawing anything regarding manga or anime, it's going to be the real stuff. And it looks like we've got a spam bot, and got to block that person. Okay, got that situated. Man, this is probably the most I've talked to you guys in a long time, and I really miss you all. But yeah, no, I mean, for anyone who knows anything about me, if I'm going to be doing anything regarding drawing characters that are anime or manga related, it's going to be the real stuff. Uh, Not cookie cutter shonen. Uh, More likely, it's going to be the things that you may or may not have even heard of or even watched. Because that is how I roll. All right. Now, the big question is, oops, always felt like this stripe thing that he has should just be part of the design of the fabric of this, poncho tunic thing, and not uh, whatever the weird connection thing between the that armor collarbone, whatchamacallit situation. All I'm going to say is that if this is the fashion of the 31st century, I'm not into it. All right. So apparently he's got like wicked boots going on here. James, I was asleep by 12:30, had a tough time staying up. It's understandable. Like for the longest time, for some reason, like this was going on for about like 3 4 months straight. I would, fall asleep at like 10:30, waking up at about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And my body was just doing like really weird stuff like that. Um, but for some reason, I think just because there was just a lot going on, and uh, we were up doing like a big game night. I think that was the only reason I was able to stay up as long as I did. Always play to the audience, Matt. I just said that I was drawing Kang the Conqueror. I did not state which art style I was doing. So, eh. I didn't know that about you. What do you consider the real stuff? Okay, so I've had a really in-depth conversation about this in live stream videos and talks with Wyatt from Blur Syndicate. Um, I am not a fan of a lot of what's considered as the modern shonen stuff because it revolves around what I like to call the Dragon Ball problem, and they follow way too many tropes that DBZ has created, and most of it revolves around just like the type of hero, the type of cast members, animal characters that get added into it for gag situations. And by gag situations, I mean like the humor, the fall guy, that type of thing. Get your minds out of the gutter, kids. So, um, so I was never, yes, I did watch DBZ all the way up to about the Cell Saga, and then I just kind of lost interest in it because it just kept on formulating itself over and over and over again. Um, so, and you'll see this with a lot of newer shonen that comes out, which I can also say the same thing about Western comics, because when you start dealing with like OG Image, like 90s Image, while yes, they were doing something that was radically different from the big two, they were still following a superhero formula. They were still following, big teams, characters similar to characters that existed in the big two. Um, you had your Wolverine characters, you had your Deadshot character, in this case, Grifter. Um, I know they're two radically different characters, but when you're looking at like the bio and the character design, but in a sense, they are the assassin character, mercenary character, if you want to call them that. Um, and while yes, you didn't exactly have a Spawn type character within the big two, you did have various characters that were supernatural. Etrigan, Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, Swamp Thing, Man Thing, list goes on. Dead Man. Um, so, while yes, OG Image did break a lot of rules and set kind of a new standard at the time period, but when you look at it objectively, they were still they being the creators, uh, the main forefathers of it. So that's McFarlane, Lee, Williams, Vitaccio, Liefeld, list goes on. They still have that engraved in their system. Big superhero teams and pouches all day long. But yeah, going back to anime and manga is just a lot of the shonen that has popped up in the last 23 years is pretty formulaic. they're going after a target audience, and a lot of it does follow a lot of tropes. uh when you sit down, you objectively look at it, they do follow a lot of the set center stuff that Dragon Ball Z has already laid the groundwork on. um so yeah, that is definitely something that I just really don't like. What I'm considering the real stuff is that when you look at the golden age of anime, and this is from about 1980 to all the way up to about 1998, 99, uh, it was peak era of one-shot stories, um, one-shot animated films and series that didn't even last more than like maybe uh, you know 6 episodes, 7 episodes at most. Uh, so I mean, you've got uh, stuff like uh, Cyber City Odio, Angel Cop, Mad Bull 34, uh, Golden Boy, um, you know, list just goes on and on and on. But there was just a lot of stuff that you had never seen before in Western media, especially in comics. Like the majority of like cyberpunk stuff was all anime. The only things in Western media that flirted with cyberpunk was Aeon Flux, and Judge Dredd. Like if we objectively sit down and look at it, those are like the only real two things, media wise, like both in comics and even animation, that fell into that category. Um, Draw Kim from Fist of North Star Vampire R&D. I'm not stating that I'm not going to draw those, because I really will draw those, just not for this episode, Alan. Akira. So, as much as I love the anime, that's actually a very abridged and very condensed anime from the actual storyline. It does deviate here and there from the source material, which you got to keep in mind. That's like 7 volumes worth of, actually, no, I think it's 6 volumes uh, worth of stuff. Excuse me. Um, Team 7 would have wiped the floor with the Avengers, clean kill. Captain America would have begged for mercy. I mean, sure. But Alan, I mean, we can also make the argument that, Suicide Squad with DC and, with Marvel, you could have had Deadpool, Punisher, Taskmaster, and whoever else we could come up with to go against Team 7, and it still would have been a slaughter fest. So, I mean, there are parallels between big two stuff at the same time, and also, OG Image. But is it hard to switch art styles? So the funny part is that I actually broke away from doing a more classic 80s style anime art style, because the guys that as far as anime is concerned, or actually, sorry, specifically manga is concerned, they were all very detailed artists, people who were drawing stuff that you do not see in current, shonen type stuff. Like when they drew a person, they drew a person, and you didn't see anything like that unless it was in Western comics. So guys like Ryuichi Ikegami, if you really wanted to, Shiro Masamune, who's the person who did Ghost in the Shell, not to be confused with the anime. I'm talking about the actual manga, because if you read anything that Shirow Masamune has done, it's very cartoony, with the exception of the the buildings, the mech, all the tech stuff, and of course the girls. But like all the guy characters were very cartoony, and kind of like comedy gag characters. Akihiro Yamada drew Record of Lodoss War, which if you've never read any of that or watched the 90s series, which is only like 13 episodes, amazing high fantasy stuff, beautiful intro video and music. But the artist for the Lady of Ferris manga, his art style was very similar to God, what's the guy's name? He has a mix between Esteban Maroto and a little bit of John Bashima in his art style. It's just with how he does line work and brush work. It's very, very old, very Western, but yet still very much manga. And of course, I can't, neglect Otomo for all the stuff that he did with Akira. Even with all of the little comedy bits here and there, his stuff still had, when he drew a person, he drew a person. And then, of course, obviously, the late great Kentaro Miura, who did Berserk. Even though he did put in like little bits of comedy here and there, which were very few and far in between. You cannot deny that guy was a master of just doing everything himself. I mean, you're not wrong, but there could be like an alternate multiverse where Kang actually does have big manga eyes and kitty with wings beside him. But see, that's the thing though. So not all manga and anime had big eyes, because when it starts getting into, you really didn't see a lot of that, and not really so much. Okay, so you got three different variations of classes of manga and anime. So you've got shonen, which is really pivoted towards boys, teenagers. Shoujo, which is aimed towards girls and teen girls. Most of it was usually a lot of romance and adventure stuff. They really pushed big eyes, and the starry eye look and the doe eye look and all that sort of stuff. And then seinen, which is meant for older audiences, so usually 16 years old and older. So with those three differences, then it broke down into genres. And with all those different genres, that's when everything started getting, lines started blurring and so on and so forth. And so you start seeing a pivotal shift right around probably about 1989 to 1990. And you started seeing a shift in the artwork where whenever you're looking at, so I'm going to use this perfect example. If you watch Akira and you're looking at all the faces and how Otomo and his art style, pretty similar to the same shapes and stuff like that you would see in Western comics. I mean, obviously it's still anime, but the eyes aren't this big. They're actually pretty normal shaped. Same thing with nose size, mouth size. The proportions were pretty much similar to what you would see in Western stuff. So, polar opposite of that, you start looking at, say, Dragon Ball Z, and well, Dragon Ball into Dragon Ball Z. Even though it is a comedy and it is action, you started, and again, this leads into the Dragon Ball problem. Because it's sold and people were really into the Toriyama style, and people were into stuff like Sailor Moon, and they were into Cardcaptor Sakura, and they were into um crap, what was the other big series at the time? It was Shonen too. It was off the top of my head. But you just started seeing more of a kid like youthful whatever going on with faces. So you had a huge push and shift towards that style, and so people took that and they ran with it. And um so because you had that shift going on, that's why you start seeing a lot of stuff, because as more and more time passed since the 80s leading into the 90s, and then right at 2000, you started seeing an even bigger shift. So there's less and less detail in the faces. There's less and less detail in anatomy, in terms of like proportions and stuff like that. So proportions are getting a little bit skewed. Um, Not as much detail in the faces. The eyes are getting bigger. The noses are getting pointier. Um, so yeah, you definitely see a bigger shift happening. Tenchi Muyo, that's what it was that I was thinking of. Um, and then of course, Cowboy Bebop, another good example. Which, no offense to either Tenchi Muyo or Cowboy Bebop, I still watch those on the regular. Well, Cowboy Bebop more than anything else. Um, it just has really good jazz music and a great story. Which, if you've never watched the anime and the movie, I highly recommend those. But I think it's a little bit less about the fact of switching art styles and realizing that there is, like all things, there is technically a right way and a wrong way of doing stuff. Because either your stuff is going to end up, and I've seen this a lot with those like how to draw books. If you really want to learn how to draw stuff within the anime context, do not buy the Christopher Hart been done books, because they really push doing the whole kitty look, with all the characters. You can't tell a difference between how a person is young or old. They all kind of look the same. Um, and that's really, really jarring. Um, Not just for like the reader, but also just, I guess like if a person has never had any sort of experience watching, uh, you know, anime before, and that was like the first thing that they saw, um, you know, that's usually how it kind of does not always go over well. Um, Tetsuya Haro stuff is almost perfect in Fist of North Star. Seems the artists from that era paid so much more attention to detail. Yes, I agree. Like I said, you see a dynamic shift, from the 80s going to the 90s and then into the 21st century, that stuff that's supposed to have the right kind of detail starts having less and less so. Now, another interesting thing is that, uh, and I hate that this has become a whatever, a trope, is that, um, again, because of Dragon Ball Z, you know who is the main character of the story if they've got spiky hair. When you look at, you know, I want to use Akira again, for instance. Tetsuyo is the main protagonist, no spiky hair whatsoever. Now, granted, Tetsuo does have a bit of a weird Vegeta cowlick thing going on, but that doesn't really happen until after his psychic powers start awakening and go off. Um, and yes, I get the point that you know it's supposed to be actual Japanese people in what's supposed to be, um, gosh, I think the events of Akira happened in 2030. I think, I can't remember. Um, yeah, supposedly, like World War III has already existed. Um, we're looking at timeline stuff. All right. So it's that, and it's got these four little button things on his belt buckle. And it's add a seam of sorts, then have another one on the side. And give his shoe some interesting treads. Because why be a time hopping megalomaniac if you can't walk in comfort? Change up this bottom part of the poncho tunic thing. It's kind of driving me nuts just a little bit. All right. So the best part about having various different types of pencil lead is that if you have to erase something, it's easier to have the most lightest lead or graphite, I should say. uh, So that whenever you're erasing anything, you're not totally regretting. It's not smearing all over the page. All right, so we're going to get into the inking and throwing down some gray tones and some other little doodads here and there, just space it up, make it look interesting. But first things first, I am going to be laying down some stuff that is basically just going to be just where I think shadows are going to be hitting on the character, just to give it a little bit of depth. The weirdest thing that I've seen with this character and his character design is that there's a lot of different textures going on. Because you've got, things that are metallic, things that have almost looks like a chainmail type uh, stitch thing going on with his poncho tunic thing, and of course the trademark scars that are going on his face. So I mean, there's just a lot of different things going on with this character. So I'm just trying to double check and triple check myself, so I'm not purposely and accidentally doing something that I just do not care for. And of course, another way of doing it is literally just putting down an X over the area so you're not having to accidentally put, you know, a hard shadow over some place that you don't want to accidentally put down a hard shadow on. So we're going to do a bit of a kind of a front shadow thing going on. So there's going to be a little bit shadow going on right here near the front part of his face. And I hate the fact that I'm drawing super loose and messy right now. Um, so after the Christmas holidays, or just after the last couple of holiday commissions, took about a week off. So, some ways, I'm just kind of getting my groove back. Uh, Kicking off the old training wheels. I want to call it that. And but it's been a good little break. It's much needed. And but yeah, going back to the whole, you know, different art styles, changing up art styles, and all that sort of stuff. If you are wanting to get into doing the anime art style stuff, I highly recommend a group of books that was actually done by a college or school that their whole thing is doing manga. Um, so I and this series of books came out, I want to say about 2001, 2002, and you can find them on Amazon if you wish to purchase them, and you might be able to find them secondhand at like a used bookstore or something like that. But it's literally called How to Draw Manga. Uh, but yeah, the name of the school is like the Society of Manga and Art. I think that's what it's called. The name of the school, the university that teaches all this. Total mouthful. But yeah, I definitely recommend. If you're going to be doing that or wanting to learn from it, those would be the only books that I would highly recommend. Uh, Simply because they literally do every subject you could possibly think about. If you wanted to talk about or just learn simply perspective, they have an entire book on perspective. They've got books strictly on clothing, animals, military equipment, transportation, setting up a scene, how to do panels, even just the basic stuff of how to use like basic tools. And then of course they've got some really weird niche oddball stuff like you know uh, ninjas, stuff like that. So if you are interested in trying to hunt those things down, you can find them on Amazon. Um, but yeah, those would be the only ones that I would ever recommend, just because they really do go down every single subject in the face of the planet, and they go in such depth in what they're talking about that they basically put any Western art book to shame when it comes to just regular comic stuff. The only good Western comic related, how to do anything comic related is Making Comics by Scott McCloud. Um, and even that doesn't really teach you much except how to make comics, not really so much teaching you a specific style. Like you have to like hunt down, other books that, teach that sort of thing, or, trying to, wing, um, just from, looking at something and then drawing it out. Basically, that's really the only way you could do it. Because, and the one reason that I do not recommend, which style you find the easiest to learn. I'm about to get to this part in a second. Um, the only reason that I do not recommend How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way is that they have not updated that book at all. It's a great book if you want to understand how to draw Golden Age style stuff. So if you want to learn how to draw like John Romita Sr., John Buscema, um, Jack Kirby, uh, Ditko, those guys, if you want to learn how to draw in that art style, that book would teach you. But the problem is that what that book really doesn't teach you is that one style or era of comics does not define comics today. It did for a time, but it doesn't anymore because art evolves. Uh, People are influenced by a lot of things. So that is the only reason why I do not ever recommend that book to people who are wanting to learn how to draw anything comic related. I always point them to other stuff, and it does kind of lead into some disappointment. But I would rather educate someone in terms of like, if you really like this sort of stuff and that's the stuff you want to draw, then pour yourself into those comics by that person and you'll learn. But the thing is that unless you actually put pencil to paper uh, and start doing it, you're never going to get there. Uh, and that's really the big thing. So, which style did I find easiest to learn? Um, so before I even knew that there was a difference between, you know, Western comic and anime style, I was just drawing just to draw. And most of the stuff that I was doing was very much influenced by, syndicate newspaper stuff. Um, I didn't start actually trying to understand how to do anime art until I was about in fifth grade. And that's when I found out that, oh God, the stuff that I've been seeing all through my childhood, this is anime. Um, and it didn't click with me until I actually read. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It was when I saw Nausicaa in the Valley of Wind, which is a Miyazaki film. Highly recommend. Um, it wasn't until then that I actually understood that this is what anime is. And then after that, Sci-Fi Channel at the time in the late '90s was actually showing anime movies, and it was really interesting because, again, had no idea that this is anime, like real anime, and it was like OVA one shot. So Uh, you know, I experienced Venus Wars, the Street Fighter animated movie, um, Demon Sea Shinjuku, uh, Tenchu Muyo in Love, Akira, Ghost in the Shell. Uh, the list goes on. And they would put all of these on heavy rotation. And every single time that I was watching those, which at the time I did not have Sci-Fi Channel at home, so whenever I was at a friend's house or if I was at my grandparents' house, that is, Saturday morning, that would be the first thing that I would be watching. And I would take like specific things about anime, aside from the style, but specific things about anime, and I would try to apply it with whatever it is I was doing. So that's everything from like, speed lines, blur lines, motion lines, pushing perspective. That taught me how to make movement and also trying to create moments in stillness, which is not an easy thing to do. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about anime over Western comics is the fact that they show the passing of time uh, very, very easy. It's almost like a second nature sort of thing within some of the stuff that they do, which is something that Western comics uh, doesn't really do and didn't really start doing until you start getting more and more into more recent stuff with a lot of independent stuff. So it wasn't until you start seeing that and that that actually kind of became the thing. And I started to take those things and started applying it to whatever it is that I was trying to draw at the time with whatever one shot comic that I was trying to create. Well, no, it wasn't even a one shot comic. you know Truth be told, ADHD, me in high school was just like, yeah, I want to create this really awesome series. And I may have done like 3 or 4 chapters in a sketchbook. And uh, I just got bored with it and just kind of started a new thing. But it forced me um, to try and understand what it is that I'm doing. It taught me better ways of how to create stories while drawing, which is really what comics is. It's sequential art. It's in a nutshell. So it made sense that uh, that is part of the art form itself. And see, yeah, David, you and I have had these conversations when we were working at Books a Million. So yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Turning 36 in March. So that is steadily creeping up on me. So right now I'm just kind of trying to block out everything and make sure I've got stuff put together before I start throwing in a brush pen. That's actually something that I really do miss doing a lot is just being a little bit more loose and sketchy with whatever it is that I'm doing. Yeah, see, I watch the same things. Um, but the thing is that uh, GI Joe was okay. So yes, the animation houses were the same for GI Joe, Thundercats, and um, Transformers. But the only thing is that GI Joe has always been an American toy. They didn't start. It wasn't until the success of Transformers and Thundercats that uh, they started using GI Joe to do all this stuff together. So there's a whole backstory thing going on, and I'm probably not going to bore people about it. You can Google that later. But for all intents and purposes, GI Joe was technically uh, always been an American thing. Uh, but they did share Japanese animators within the animation house when they were trying to create the stuff. And while yes, Transformers is technically a Japanese toy, um, and they did have some Japanese animators, um, the the toys, just the whole situation was more pushing towards the U.S. Even though they were pushing it hard in Japan, but there was like some differences with certain episodes that got aired in Japan but didn't air in the U.S. and vice versa. Um, and if I remember correctly, that what was it? There was something specific that there was like a specific difference between some of the early 80s crossover stuff that was going on with toys and the animation. Um, but yeah, I mean, those were the same stuff that I grew up watching as a kid and also renting the VHS from whatever mom and pop rental store that, I rented stuff off from. So, but the thing is that out of all of those, if we want to get into real technicalities, out of that list you wrote down, Voltron and Speed Racer are the only authentic anime out of that list. Yeah, Battle of the Planets, which was also Gotcha Man. Yeah, that is there, and there was also uh, Mazinger Z. Um, that was another one, and Getter Robo was also another one that also kind of aired in the U.S. to a degree. Uh, oh, uh, what a lot of people don't realize is that if you watch the Rankin Bass Hobbit, not only is it a Disney movie, but it's also anime because the majority of the animators were all Japanese. Same thing for the Return of the King animated film that came out in that same time period. Was done by the same people who did The Hobbit. But out of all those, The Lord of the Rings was the only one that was strictly Western, and also the only one out of the three that used rotoscope, which is the same technology that they used for Wizards, Fire and Ice, and also the Heavy Metal movie as well. There's probably a few others that I'm missing from that category, but yeah. Um, oh, and also, also want to add Robotech to the group as well. Um, just the real OG stuff. Which I remember seeing like an episode or two of that on TV when I was like a little kid, but I never actually got to watch the series until the very first iteration of uh, Toonami, um, because Robotech was actually part of that. So if I remember correctly, the first lineup of anime that they showed with Toonami, you had um, Dragon Ball, you had Sailor Moon, you had Robotech, and I forgot what the fourth one was. And it wasn't until things really started popping off with just the popularity of Toonami that they started adding in Tenchi Muyo. They started adding in um, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember Ronin Warriors. That was the other one that they were adding in. And then also, of course, Gundam Wing. So that was the big time stuff. No, it is not anime. It happens to have Japanese animators within the animation studio that they were working off of, but it is not anime. Um, sorry, but I'm actually going to have to agree with Josh with him squirming in his seat because that is the defining line difference between that, because that is the truth. No, Appleseed wasn't the fourth one. Now they did show Appleseed because it was a OVA when they showed it, but it was on Sci-Fi Network on Saturday mornings. But they never showed that on Toonami, simply because it was rated R, and everything that they were showing on Toonami was supposed to be TV PG or not. There was actually a few episodes of Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop that they couldn't even show on Cartoon Network. Actually, it was Outlaw Star and Gundam Wing because they were actually supposed to air on September 11th. And it was actually a spacecraft accidentally crashing into a building, or or was it into a space colony? It was one of the two, but it was basically a flying aircraft crashing into something. And that episode was actually supposed to air on September 11th, and they actually had to remove that episode. So unless you bought the VHS when it came out from that time, or you read the manga, or You wait until it ended up on a streaming service when Netflix first started. That was the only way you were able to watch that episode uh, because Cartoon Network was super heavy with the censorship because in the actual Dragon Ball Z anime, they actually had to censor a lot of the violence because in DBZ, there was when you read the manga, there's actually a lot of blood and a lot of gore, and they actually had to edit a lot of that. And the only anime that got past the censorship, despite the fact that it still had a decent amount of blood and gore, was actually Inuyasha, of all things. Um, so yeah, that was a really weird turning point. But they started moving the time slot for Toonami from you know the early afternoons when kids were getting off of school to further and further at night, but yet they were starting a slot on Saturday mornings called the Rising Sun. And it didn't do so well compared to other shows for some reason. So they pulled the plug on that. And that's when they started introducing Adult Swim. And that's when they started bringing in Standalone Complex, uh, and Full Metal Alchemists, and that's when they moved Cowboy Bebop in its entirety, unedited, to that. And then there were a couple of other shows that they were trying to put in with Adult Swim, but then it became less and less anime and more Western animation stuff. So that's when you start getting off with Hunger Force and Metalocalypse and all the other shows that were happening at that time period. And it's really sad that I even know all of this stuff. um, which the weird part is that I'm actually really surprised with Appleseed is that it is a series that could have had an actual anime series made out of it, anywhere between the late 80s to early 90s, especially with the success of not just Ghost in the Shell, which a lot of people don't realize that there's actually a second Ghost in the Shell anime called Innocence. It just was never released with an English dub in the US. So as far as I know, the only version of it that you'll find is going to be uh, English subtitles, Japanese dub. Um, but it's such an art house kind of film that it would confuse the normal probably confuse the normal viewer. Um, so the people that were in charge of that anime direction was a guy by the name of Mamoru Oishi, and he did a lot of directing with films. And of course, Ghost in the Shell being, his magnum opus kind of thing, um, which got him a lot of acclaim to fame. But he did a film before that, which I highly recommend if you guys ever get around to finding it and watching it. It's called Pat Labor, the Mobile Police Force. So the actual series itself is a sci-fi police comedy, and apparently in the 21st century, you've got these robots called labors, and of course each one has their own kind of like CDL type license thing. They're used for everyday purpose, like construction or forklift or demolition and stuff like that, all the way up to um, you know emergency situations like the police force, obviously, and military purposes as well. So it had always been a sci-fi police comedy thing. Um, but it had really cool mech design. and it was definitely one of those shows that just kind of was a bit of a sleeper to a degree. But the manga sales did pretty good at the time, and so they had released an actual full length movie, and it was actually a super serious suspense sci-fi thing, definitely within the same vein of like tone of like Ghost in a Shell. So in some ways, you could say that the first Patlabor film, and actually even the second one, helped created the course of the Ghost in the Shell anime, because the second one, uh, I personally believe, well, sorry, the second Patlabor film, I personally believe is a bit of a masterpiece, and is also very much a sleeper film in the sense of a lot of people slept on it. Uh, it just had everything from political intrigue to suspense to um, you know really cool mech action scene. So I mean, there was just a lot of stuff going on in that film, but it was can't say enough good things about Patlabor 2. So if you ever happen to find that on Prime, I would just say, spend the $4 or $5, rent it, watch it. It's definitely a good one. All right. Let's see if I can find weird texture thing. Okay. And let's see, there was another really good um, OVA from another guy who, wished he was still around doing stuff, but unfortunately he passed away in the early 2000s. Um, and his name is Satoshi Kon, and he is the guy who created Perfect Blue, which is very much a Alfred Hitchcock type film. Um, Definitely not for little kids, because it gets a little bit mental, like uh, very much taking vibes from like Psycho, mental, but just great film all around. And I'm pretty sure it's won several awards. Corflue used to give me nightmares as a teen. Well, I mean, yeah, because it had that really weird identity crisis, type of thing going on. It's just like, was it really me that did all this? Was it just my mind? And then oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. And then you find out, the twist, sort of thing. So, um, yeah, they did show Perfect Blue on Cinemax, and I want to say for a very, very short period of time, they were actually showing anime on HBO. Uh, Part of that was because of how well the Spawn animated series did. And so they were just like, well, sci-fi has stopped doing all of you know, uh, the PG-13 rated R anime OVAs. So, let's hop on that train. So they actually did put in, Perfect Blue. Pretty sure that they did Demon City Shinjuku and Wicked City. That's a rough one to watch. What else? Both Street Fighter movies, the animated ones. So that's Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter Alpha. And um, there were a few others. I'm pretty sure they also did both of the Vampire Hunter D movies as well. More likely they did Akira. Steam Boy was another one. So yeah, they really did a lot of stuff during that time period. All right, let's erase some of these extra lines. And we're going to start throwing in some gray tones. And let's see here. So there's going to be a couple different really weird values and stuff like that I'm going to have to do for this. Um, so yeah, hoping that it's going to translate. Let's see. What am I going to pick? Let's just keep this easy. Keep it simple. Keep it safe. So what I really love about just using a chisel end of an alcohol marker such as Copics, or you've got other brands like Touch, and uh, Chameleon, and there's a few others. But what I love about using the chisel in is that works perfect for, obviously, a lot of square areas. But uh, as much as I hate making a pun out of what I'm doing, it's so much simpler to block in what it is that I'm doing, and I'm able to get the idea across with how I want to throw down values. And of course, like the more and more that you layer them up, uh, you know, the more saturated they become, and that's when you start building in, like I said, saturation and uh, opacity, all those other really interesting keywords that you can use. Um, I do recommend Copics over Prismacolor if you're choosing to use that, simply because they do not have a really weird, uh, you know, smell that comes off of them. Because Prismacolor markers have this almost Sharpie like uh, strength uh, after a time. I just don't understand how people are able to use them without feeling like they're about to get some sort of like weird contact high from using them. But um, yeah, but the thing is that the argument is like copy markers are so expensive. Well, yes, but you have to think of it like buying a car versus buying gas. Yes, buying a car is expensive, but it's the gas that you put in it, and in this case, refills, which you have to buy separately from the markers, that extends the purchase, and you're investing in it. So while yes, a single copy marker is dumb and it's how expensive it is, but if you buy the refills, you're able to use it over and over again, so you're not having to rebuy the same marker. Um, so if you're getting into the whole copy marker thing, uh, you know, highly recommend starting off with a simple set like uh, gray tones. So in this case, I'm using the cool gray markers. Uh, I'll probably be using a few others in other videos, which I have, like warm grays and natural grays. I just like the cool gray because, well, not because it's cool, but um, I've probably used this the longest out of all of the gray tone stuff. Warm grays being the next group, but I've just really preferred uh, using them. Um, they look nice, and Amazon usually does some really good deals with trying to pick these things up, like on Prime Day. Uh, so if you can get your hands on some, uh, definitely shell out the 60-70 bucks for the set, because the cool thing is that it doesn't have to be just copy marker or sorry, comic book stuff to use these things. I've seen people use this for, drafting, storyboards. It has a lot of different functions. So I definitely do recommend, picking up the set if you're doing, you know, anything from just doodling to, storyboarding to full on drafting, a lot of function and purpose for these things. Yeah, just black and white with some gray tones. Just figured that would be a lot easier to convey what I'm seeing with how I'm putting this all together. And some more value in the face. Now, the biggest downside to any alcohol marker is, well, first off, don't drink the alcohol ink. It's not the same. It's not what you're thinking. Because there's that one person out there that's going to do that. But no. The biggest downside is that, um, depending on the thickness of paper and uh, how many layers of the stuff that you use, there is the possibility of whatever you ink can possibly bleed or smear. So you do have to be careful. And so uh, I usually like to do things in reverse by having the copy marker stuff done first, and then throw inks on top. Uh, and some days it just works better. Doing it the way that you think it should be done. Inks first, and then grayscale on top. But right. So wanted to just kind of quickly throw this in while it's still fresh in my mind. So I've kind of talked about it, hinted about it with a couple of people, stuff that I posted on social media. If you are following me, I hope you're following me on social media. Um, but I am actually going to be releasing my first ever creator-owned one-shot comic uh, on Kickstarter, and I'm going to be doing that this spring. Something that I'm really excited about. It just kind of bridges in some of the things that I really love, um, in terms of just things I grew up just liking as a kid, and figured, you know what, it'd be really cool to do a comic that's doing this stuff. So, if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, Hellboy, um, and uh, even the really cool, interesting scenes and like um, the Dream State fight scenes and uh, Sucker Punch, uh, this thing is will probably be in your wheelhouse. But it wanted to, you know, do something that was really fun, really interesting, and hopefully you guys out there will feel the same thing when you read it. Because um, the one thing about comics that I've noticed within the shift of um, things with like readers and what people are going for is that you're seeing less and less people wanting to get into uh, a full-blown long-running series, and they rather uh, get into limited run stuff. And by limited run, I mean like anywhere from 4 to 6 issues at most. Uh, so wanted to do something that was probably about 60 to 80 pages. You could read it in one go. Kind of brings back the craziness of some of the stuff that I loved about watching, OG uh, anime, with it being like just one shot stuff. Uh, here. But yeah, most of the reason is mainly there is that shift of just attention spans and what people are wanting and willing to spend their time doing. And I'm not going to lie, I actually do kind of prefer, just because the older I'm getting now, I have less and less time to want to get involved in a long running series and then get disappointed because I spent X amount of money on something and it's not really delivering what it's supposedly advertising itself that it's supposed to deliver. So, and I know a lot of people are kind of in the same wheelhouse of feeling that same kind of little letdown of sorts. So, uh, I totally get it. So, and that's the last thing I want to do. Um, so it's also a lot easier for me to just be like, kickstart something that's going to be, like 60 pages, and a person can be like, yeah, I'll definitely get down with that, versus having to do multiple Kickstarters for an ongoing series. And excuse me, and just you know, it might not even get fully funded after issue 2. So I mean, I rather deal with just having just the complete one shot, just there for people to want to be a part of and get with it. Because that way everyone's getting the full enchilada. They're able to read it in one go, and they can read it as many times as they want, and they're not having to wait for the next thing. So that's just kind of where my mind's at. Oops, sorry, did not mean to hit the camera. But in the meantime, I will be posting more stuff about this project, and I'm going to be letting everyone know that hey, this is here. Going to be launching it this particular date and time, so that everyone knows, and they're going to be able to keep that in their calendar, get their notifications, all that fun stuff. There's obviously going to be, a lot of stuff in terms of the stretch goals, reward tiers, and stuff like that. And I'm also going to be posting some stuff on my Patreon soon. I forgot to do that a couple of days ago, and I was supposed to, and a couple of last minute live things pop up that kind of took my attention away by accident. So totally sorry about that, guys. But yeah, some of the stuff I'm going to be uh, posting on Patreon is basically just like, which if you have my sketchbook already, you will probably see the main character in there. So I'm going to be posting some more concept art stuff, more things revolving around the world building and having fun with just messing around with some alternative history stuff. All right, so as you can obviously tell, I'm throwing down a lot of black ink, and I'm going to be sprucing it up, and also going to be adding a few more extra values to the tunic. because I kind of didn't do that to a degree. That's partly because there's going to be an interesting texture pattern thing going on. Great episode tonight. Glad we got off in the conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let you know when Kickstarter goes live and promoting Shop Talk. Yeah, I'm definitely going to let you and Josh know ahead of time when it's going to drop. So that's definitely going to happen for sure. But that being said, I do have plans to be doing a few anime characters and a bunch of other stuff this year. I'm actually doing less conventions this year than I was originally planning to. Some of that was purely accidental, and some of it then later became a bit of a necessity situation. And that's just because while it was great doing all those different events and conventions, and I'm still doing conventions this year. It's just I think I overexerted myself in terms of how many events I can do in one day. Or sorry, not one day, in 1 month. And doing like, God, I think I did 4 events within a month time period, and I'm surprised that I there were a lot of like good problems and bad problems with doing that. But I learned so much within that uh, little scenario of things. Uh, $500 pledge gets a custom comic reading list and my autograph. Are you going to do Alan's pick for every subscriber? Dude, if you did that, oh my gosh, like we would be getting so much stuff out of the dollar bins into the pledges. Because I would, man, you would be getting like all those issues of like Elf Quests and whatever else just for kicks and giggles. Hopefully not Gold Goblin, because that would be the worst troll of it all. 500 pledge to the custom comic reading list by me, Shadow on Shop Talk, and my autograph. Should probably do it very Doctor Who-ish and be like, For $600, I'll do all of this plus the bottle of the air of my lungs. Go by summer one is a hot book, and you know it. um, I'm not sure if Drax feels the same way about that, but yeah, it's a hot book. Yeah, there's like this really weird feathering texture thing going on with his outfit. So it's going to be really interesting to try and replicate it the best that I can. And I'm really thankful for everyone who is sticking around and has been watching and commenting on this. Definitely means a lot. I definitely miss talking with you guys and cutting up, hanging out, and all that fun stuff. Probably. Uh, I mean, Alan, I'm just going to let you know it's a very, very lonely anthill that you're choosing to stay on, but it's an anthill nonetheless. Which I do have a feeling that when I'm at the shop on Friday, Alan's first words that are going to come out of his mouth are GI Joe's an anime, and it's not. I think you're right, but I think he is too. Died on smaller hills. So this would not be a first. All right. Let's see if I can throw in some equal values. Dig the Michael Jackson look. Um, So ironically enough, this is actually one half of an obvious pair, but this is actually an old marching glove. Um, and I'm basically just used it to keep all of the ink and graphite off of my hands, so I'm not trying to smear it all over the page. So that's really only it's really the only reason why I even use it. Um, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be some conspiracy theory that's going to get created where I'm secretly seeing smooth criminal whenever I'm drawing. Uh, I mean, sort of yes, sort of no. I actually do enjoy the fact that there is like some actual conversation that's going on, and it's actually made things a little bit better than just operating in the full silence. But at the same time, also knew that I was wanting to spend some time and work on this just a little bit and do some stuff. Figure you were just warming up the pan pan for the wrong on a Friday. Hmm. Oh, sorry. Hmm. Could be on to something. All right. So very quickly, I'm going to be dropping in some big old stencil circles because why not? You know. Uh, actually, get go. All right. Looks like Tots is having it in for tonight. Have a good night, Tots. We're actually almost about to be done with this, so I guess you can catch the last 5 or 10 minutes whenever you get around to it. Yeah, just throwing in some circles. Wanting to I keep hitting this thing. Do not mean to do that, but we got a dude that likes to mess around with time. We would try to do a little Kirby crackle. which I could technically do this free-handed if I wanted to, but I just figure go ahead and put down some lines. So we at least have an idea of where certain things are and where they could be. Of course, like these are like really, really big circles. How maybe a plus size model, but he's still lying on his feet. Dodge the Infinity Glove like Goku does. But yeah, so now that we have these little templates down hands, where is there it is. I'm going to be throwing in some Kirby Crackle effects. Now, usually this effect is really just for like, people that are like powering up and stuff like that. And of course, Jack Kirby being the person that kind of originated this, energy projection type whatever, but it's such a really cool effect and it can be used in any number of ways. Whether if it's just like a design motif or um, which kind of doing that right now as you can use it as like a galaxy background. So many different ways and ideas that you can use such a great little design element. In fact, I think the only person, as far as just modern comic book artists, I want to say Philip Tan probably uses Kirby Crackle more than any other modern comic book artist that I know of. And the guy uses it. Uh, it's about as notorious using it as he does with his cross hatching skills. Which, if you do not know who Philip Tan is, definitely check out his artwork. He's on Instagram and Twitter. Uh, you can, Google uh, Philip Tan comic artist, and you'll see, all of his pencil stuff. Want to say that he is up there with Brett Booth as far as just you know part of the OG image guys with just really tight pencil lines. Actually, I don't think their style is slacked in terms of just like how tight they make pencils. I mean, Silvestri is still pretty tight. Lee is definitely loosened up. Uh, of course, Liefeld's looks like garbage as usual, but that's just a hot take for me, which I really don't like hot takes. So, uh, I know there's a lot of people that are they love Liefeld, but compared to all the other people from the OG Image era, uh, if it was a kickball team and Portacio and Liefeld were like the last two people uh, in the group, I would be choosing Portacio hands down every time. Uh, and let's see, we're going to be throwing in some gray. All right, so got these going on, and going to quickly, or as quick as I possibly can, throw in some little here and there. And now we're going to be going over the line weight to thicken up the the outline, so you're able to kind of linearate some distance between everything. And then I'm going to be quickly going in right after that, some white ink to help clear up some of this. All right. Thank you so much, David. Not liking that very much. So the best thing about having hard black area, even if you did put, white ink over set spot, you can just cover it back up with black, and so it's like it never happens. Well, like I said, Alan, I really don't mind if people are talking because, it's kind of all part of the whole thing. Was not expecting this show to go as long as it did, regardless of the fact that, we've been talking about this, that, and the other, and going off topic and all that fun stuff. But move this up from the back. I'm sorry. Had tape on the back to make sure that this thing would stay up the way that it did, but Kang the Conqueror right here. Yep. So, didn't see anything in terms of the chat, in terms of, if there was a live bid or anything going into the comments. But this will be posted up for sale if anyone happens to want it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for wanting to watch this show. I will be doing. Thank you, Alan. I I will be posting up more and more episodes as far as just in advance what shows I'm going to be doing on Sunday nights with the specific topics. And some that I've been slacking on with the last couple of shows that I've done. So yeah, last little bits of housekeeping. Haven Comics is located in 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. If you have, wow, having some issues trying to switch things over. Oh goodness. Okay, here we go. Remember to like and subscribe if you happen to like the show or anything that we do at Haven Comics, or if you want to like and subscribe to anything that I am a part of on social media, please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications on everything that I'm at on social media. And you can find me under tpriceartworks. So that is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also on Tumblr, Hive, and Mastodon as well. Also within that Linktree thing, you'll also find my Patreon and also Venmo if you want to tip me as well. That's it, everyone. Thank you for coming out, and I will see you guys next Sunday.